Google and Apple from Apple and Google respectively, speak to the fact that advertising is definitely, it's something that people are taking very seriously. It's something that developers are, and software engineers and software publishers are treating as a very real revenue stream. But now you've got Apple and the ability to very seamlessly charge for applications. Not only that, but very seamlessly charge for in-app content. I mean, I can sell content within a free application now. I can sell subscriptions. I can do all kinds of interesting things that I couldn't do just a year ago and ever before that on phones.
Which leads us to the second big scary word after monetization is analytics.
Sure.
If you wanted to speak on that, it's a perfect segue.
Sure, absolutely. So, it definitely takes a lot of quantitative horsepower and just a lot of understanding of how users are engaging with your applications to be able to say, well, I should charge for stuff inside my app. I should sell, content in my app, or I should, have it go off of a subscription type revenue model, or et cetera, et cetera. It's just like anything else. It's just like any other business. How do I know how to charge people or how to make money off of my users unless I know how long they're spending using what I'm making? What type of people are they? When do they use my application? Where do they use it? Et cetera, et cetera.
So the proper interpretation of the data you gathered is just as important as gathering data. Knowing what to do with it, or being able to sell your service to someone who has data, giving them a guideline of what to do.
Right, absolutely. I mean, I think quantitative metrics and key performance indicators and all these things are things that are built on top of the data that we're able to serve back to developers and that we've been serving back for the past 2 years or so. It's like anything else, and I think that's the most important point I can stress is that the developers that we've seen and the entrepreneurs, I should say, that we've seen that have become successful on these platforms are just that. They're entrepreneurs and they're people that are able to ingest the data that we give them back and really understand the business that they're trying to build. And it goes beyond sort of just the gold rush mentality of just building applications and hoping something hits.
So there is a parallel to draw between early web companies where the rules of business aren't thrown out the window just because something is happening on the web, and the rules of business don't fly out the window just because you're doing something for mobile content.
I don't think they ever get thrown out the window, right? I think they just get reapplied to new and exciting places, and that's what we have here. I mean, that's what we have with the iPhone and with Android, and I think having it's just one more thing in your arsenal, right? To be able to build. Sorry.
Yeah, no, and whether it's the user experience or the metrics or the advertising, content publishers, to sort of maintain our brand and our experience for our users, providing our content out there, we need to think about sort of all of those mechanisms across as we move our business into the mobile sphere as it really comes into its own.
Does your target audience play a heavy hand on what platforms you're going to offer your content on?
We have extremely high usage of BlackBerry and iPhone users, and I'm sure as Android ramps up, that'll grow as well. Again, I think we really need to be on all platforms, and the Times has sort of a diversified audience in terms of the type of people as well as geographically across the country and internationally. So we have to support multiple platforms, basically all the major platforms.
So does anybody have an audience question?
In terms of advertising, one of our professors here always says online dollars or print dollars, online dimes. And do you think that it's going to be mobile millions in terms of advertising? So do you think that the New York Times is going to grow in revenue because of mobile?
Well, we've seen a strong growth in our mobile advertising, and without getting into specific numbers, I think that growth will continue. Part of it through the technology of Mediawatts. We've had some fantastic campaigns in 2009, and I'm sure they'll continue as devices get more capable of either supporting flash or rich media through Mediawatts type technology. More and more advertisers, whether it's luxury advertisers or neighborhood shops or restaurants, utilizing GPS technology in it. There's almost mobile provides the sort of functionality that never quite existed on the web and the desktop, and that unless you had Skype installed, you ran across a phone number on the web, you had to sort of manually look over to your cell phone or to your phone and type in the number, whereas you have click to call on the web and sort of lead generation and GPS. So there's really more added value, whether it's interacting directly with a site for e-commerce or using some sort of ad platform and technology. So I think new and different sources of revenue will come. And in terms of the actual monetization of the content, it's no secret about the direction that the Times is headed in, and other media companies in terms of some of them charging for content now. I think that mobile will fit into that as a key part of people's lives now, consuming content on the run. We were basically at ground zero 3.5 years ago in terms of page views, and last year somewhere, in total coming close to 1 billion page views from mobile devices. It's a meaningful area now that I'm sure will help contribute to the bottom line.
Are you going to charge for the iPad version of the New York Times?
Charge for the iPad version of the New York Times.
You should.
So as I said, the Times announced for January or shortly into 2011, there will be some monetization of the content, and I'm sure the iPad will be included in that.
And to answer from my client's perspective, the numbers are still pretty small. You know what I mean? There's one of the newspaper groups we talked to in Europe was sort of making a couple of million from mobile and 200 million from print. So those numbers still are that big, and I think the opportunity for the news groups is to start charging for things like they should have all charged for their iPhone apps, and some of them didn't. The Guardian did in the UK, and it's not a huge amount of money, but they made some money. And I think things like there's no reason why you shouldn't, when you're doing the iPad, have people paying every day for the paper and have the advertising in the paper. That's the model.
Exactly. For 150 years, the Times has existed as a print product with ads in it that people pay either on the newsstand or home delivery. And I would concur that as a paid products, there's no reason to expect that they wouldn't have some level of advertising in them as well, though maybe it's a differentiated type of advertising or amount of advertising.
And Murdoch's trying to go back and because they all lost all that money, and he's trying to go back and say, now we're going to charge for online. He just can't do that. And I think these devices, you can do that, and he really should do that. I mean, subscription revenue is way better. I mean, I love the story of The Economist who went onto the Kindle, and then they charged top dollar for it, and then everyone's like, oh, you suck, you can't do that. And then they're the highest downloaded app on the Kindle. You know what I mean? And out of all of their customers. And I think that you really do need, they all need to get together. And Murdoch's, the first one to do it and say, we're going to charge. Why should you, get the newspaper for free? And everyone will say, because they've got it online. Yeah, but you're getting value by taking it away with you, taking it, reading it before you go to bed, or taking it, mobilizing it, when you go to the park and stuff. And so you do need to.
And in some, depending on the size and form factor, whether it's an iPad or a Slate type of device, and with offline reading, it starts to approximate what the newspaper experience was like, particularly if it has engaging ads, and it's good for us, good for the advertisers, and also for the consumer. I think, just to sort of maybe end with this, it's that there's a variety of business models that content publishers might go forward with besides just the advertising alone. There's, one-time fee for an app, something like the CNN app currently is. There is the possibility of just charging for your mobile apps and different platforms, or together as some sort of cross-platform mobile subscription. And then there's more of like the FT model where you're paying one price online and mobile, and through putting your FT credentials within the app, you gain access to the full breadth of the app's content.
I think the key to that is you both touched on, you're offering a consumer what they want, the way they want it, when they want it, which is the value-added proposition that.
Sure, we need to be there on all platforms.
As an online marketer, a digital marketer, my consumers often blame me for ruining everything with advertising. And I know that in the mobile space, which is the most private, personal, closest to you, area of your daily digital life, having an advertiser come in is often invasive. I know we do a lot, in banner. We do sponsorships, sometimes advertorial apps. But how can we build trust with the consumer and sort of not seem invasive, but rather enhancing of their experience? What are some advice?
It's a great question.
I'll have a mini one before you jump in because I think it's your main area. I think that people are worried, they're too worried about it. And I think that people will choose, to be advertised to. Just like Zuckerberg said that people don't want privacy, a lot of the young kids don't want privacy. I don't really care too much about privacy and someone stealing my identity because it's never going to happen. You know what I mean? Or it's not very likely. And I will choose to get, advertised to and get money off. And I think that you with rich experiences, you'll have some old people who might not like, intrusive ads coming on. But I think, I know that I would, and I know a lot of people are going to say, give it to me. If I can get my favorite soup half price, bring it on. I'll take it any day. And that's what you do, isn't it?
Soup ads, yes.
Yeah.
Well, 5 years ago, there was a survey, and 90% of people said they never want an ad on their phone. But if you're offering someone something that they do want, the barrier falls to that. So that's the trick. And
Think about the phones they were thinking about when
Yes,
they were
and that's
thinking
the
about
truth.
not wanting ads.
Right.
It was a Motorola Razr, and it was an ad that would take up 90% of the screen while they're paying $1 per kilobyte to use the internet.
And it
the
looked-
internet, as the mobile providers would allow it to be. Look, I think you're absolutely right. I think we collectively, as people who are trying to vend products and services to a global economy, need to be sensitive to the needs and wants of our audience, right? That's an inviolate in any medium. In mobile specifically, as long as, and I say this glibly, we're a data platform behind us, and every ad tech company is fundamentally a data company with a little bit of sizzle on top of it. As long as you are following a few set of key rules that are appropriate for that platform, you can get away with an awful lot, and not just get away with it, but actually engender positive feelings and goodwill from your audience. And so, for example, with the New York Times, we spent a lot of time thinking about what's the right ad model, and there are full-screen interstitial advertisements that run in the New York Times mobile app. This is the New York Times. This is a very well-respected and, in some respects, staid mobile content brand. There were some significant concerns about doing anything that would impact the end user's perception of that brand. Ultimately, we came up with a model where there was the quid pro quo value in exchange in advance of delivering one of these intrusive ads, right? You give the user part of the content experience. You let them go through some of what it is that they'd want out of the application, and then you can deliver an ad to them, right? It's not an immediate upfront, like the notion of online pre-roll video, which pre-roll video ads are somewhat akin to like television advertising, where it's very interruptive, but it's interruptive before you've even seen the content. If you avoid a lot of the basic mistakes, and again, we crunch lots of numbers on the back end, but we keep coming back to the same fundamental conclusions. Deliver ads that don't suck, do them in a way that don't piss people off, and you'll actually end up making a lot of friends along the way, and friends of the brand that you're marketing.
I know that the title of this panel is about Google and Apple, but what about BlackBerry? We know that their browser is really not good, but they have the best email system in the corporations. How do you feel that BlackBerry is going to fit on the future? Is there a future for BlackBerry?
So the question was, is there a future for BlackBerry, given that they have, the advantage in their email systems, but they lack in the browser? So, Eric, did you want to take this?
Wow, I actually anticipated that this was going to happen. I set myself up for it. Yeah.
Well, how about the thought of moving smartphones into the enterprise space, where?
Well, so fundamentally, that's the one weakness of BlackBerry, is that they have one strength point, right? Their adoptive base has largely gone to them because they provided a core set of services to customers of enterprise that then kind of made their way out into the consumer market because of that same sort of enterprise pull, and because of the form factor that was distinguished from other devices in the market, right? There's a significant percentage of BlackBerry users that aren't corporate users. They tend to be young women. There's a big skew of their audience where the device form factor was the driving consideration in purchasing it, and not
Such
the fact
as a physical keyboard, if you just want to
physical keyboard is a really big one,
thing
and
in,
not the fact that it tied to corporate email systems. Corporate email systems are changing and evolving to the point of the cloud computing dialogue that we were waxing on earlier. This is just a lot of hand waving to say, I really don't know. Like, it's so hard to predict. I keep wanting to count them out, and they keep coming back stronger than ever.
I think in this,
It's a
I
tough
think
call.
you're right though. I think your original wanting to count them out. Now that email's been taken away from them, which was their big thing, I think they'll be gone. Unless they do something, they'll be gone in 5 years, I reckon.
But when you have an entire company based on their mobile experience, unlike Apple and Google at this point in time, although it's very key to them in the future, I would not expect them to sit quietly, go quietly into the night. I think you'll see them iterate very quickly and work on devices that have much better browsers and are competitive and clean up the app world. I think we discussed how the app purchasing experience isn't quite up to the iTunes experience. So and the giant install base of corporate users, it's hard to dislodge that. It's a sticky setup, and all the company paid data plans that allow people to consume New York Times content or other content on their phones. I think they have some time to work on expanding their product offering and improving it.
The Storm didn't work though. It got a lot. I mean, it was really difficult.
Terrible
to
device.
use.
What about the IT departments who only support BlackBerries? Like, that always frustrated me. Do you find that that's
I
a
think
common
that's
topic
changing.
that's changing?
Depending on what your email infrastructure
Yeah.
is, I think a lot of them support a couple of these other smartphone.
And look out
models.
look out for things like enterprise Android solutions for companies. I think there's going to be a lot of companies who go in there and build, the sort of infrastructure that typically BlackBerry had for Android, and then they're going to get the nicer devices. And I think that as soon as that happens, that stranglehold's going to be gone.
To close things off, do you guys want to take 1 minute to just rant about whatever? It could be positive, it could be negative, anything mobile related. I'm going to time you actually. So go ahead, Eric.
God, I feel like I've been doing nothing but ranting the last couple of hours. Okay, I'll do my best to keep it on topic here. There's a real battle going on. Mobile, as we see it today, is the first new computing platform since the introduction of the desktop computer, and that's not a small feat. That's not an insignificant thing. Human behaviors are changing, society is changing, communication is changing because we're all empowered now. And I say we live in the microcosm of New York where we think everybody in the world has an iPhone because 70% of the room here has one. But people are increasingly empowered with very powerful computing devices attached to them at all times. There's a lot of money associated with that, whether it's at the micro or the macro scale. These guys are going to fight. It's going to be big. It's going to be ugly. We're already seeing lawsuits. There are going to be bloodbaths along the way. There are going to be a lot of companies that traditionally have partnered with companies like Apple and Google that are just going to get absolutely squashed in the process. It's going to be a big, big mess because there's just so much money at stake right now. I'll leave my rant at that.
Thanks. Rob?
Just very briefly, I would say content publishers will be left behind if they don't focus on mobile, and they need to somehow figure out a strategy for supporting multiple devices, whether your content remains free or paid. You need a strategy around getting it out on these different platforms and being as compelling as possible. And if that includes advertising your prior model and go forward model, you need to invest the time and the resources and the infrastructure to make sure that you have the groundwork for the coming age of sort of mobile computing, because again, we're not really talking about phones here, it's mobile computing.
I mean, I would go further from Eric's point and say, really you need to consider behavior, and you need to consider that it's not really mobile, it's more personal media, what's personal to you. And I think that it's no surprise, I mean, all of the stats will tell you that more than half of the web accesses are coming from one device, coming from the iPhone. And you really have to think about what makes, why is it successful, and what is it about people that, that make them want that device and not other devices. And the reason is it looks pretty and feels nice. It's probably the advertising they're pushing out to you, and it's also, how easy it is to use and the usability. I think that's really, really important. And if you don't think about the behavior and the usability and why people are doing things, then you're in a little bit of trouble. And that's why I put up my hand and said I think that Apple will win. It's because they won the music battle. You know what I mean? All the labels were big and heavy and kind of fell to the side, and then they won because they had a really nice looking player. You know what I mean? There was nothing new there, and I think that that's kind of an important thing to think about. And so many of the discussions have been around tech, and people think about tech so much, but it's not tech. It's about, why millions of people buy the device, and it's because it's not because it does really cool technical things. It's because it feels nice and is easy to use, and I think that's kind of the reason why, because that's Apple's mantra. I think that's why I back them.
So, so yeah, just kind of combining everyone's points together, since I have the luxury of doing that, being last. I think the biggest takeaway that I would take if I were in the audience is just that mobile is obviously huge, and I would definitely encourage anyone who's thinking about either building apps or looking into development or anything like that to really jump on it, because it's the entire basis of this fight is for Apple and Google and all the other platform providers to be able to provide better services and more seamless services for developers to be able to make money and to be able to build businesses, which in turn provides users with better content, with better software, et cetera, and to be a part of something like that at this stage, and like Eric mentioned, the adoption rate, dwarfs PC adoption in its earliest days, and it's amazing to see that happening now. It's amazing to see a lot of the mobile, publishing and mobile entrepreneurs that have gotten involved and have done well and built very interesting businesses and very interesting products on the platform. And I definitely encourage anyone to do so. And if anyone is interested, I'm happy to talk afterwards.
I want to give our panelists a round of applause. That was fantastic.